So far we've been using processing in basic mode. Now basic mode will just read the commands that we put in order and run to the end of the file and then stop. That's it. It doesn't redraw anything, it just does everything once and finishes. And that's absolutely fine for drawing a single static image, a chart or some such. But one of the powers of processing is that it can work interactively, and I'll just show you how processing manages that. If you look up at the processing window, you will see that we have a slightly different way of putting our code in. We start off with defining a function called setup. Now setup, the name there, is the name of the function. In the parentheses the parentheses are empty, there are no parameters in there, and the void here says that setup will actually return no values. And we put all the commands we want to run in this function between the first and the closing braces. So these commands here, size and background, will be read once when the program starts. The program will look for a function called setup and it will run that function once. The second function is one called draw, and processing will then repeatedly run this function. So we will run draw once and then run it again and again, and it will run this at 60 times a second, or as fast as it can if it can't complete all the commands within that 1/60th of a second. So what we're doing inside this draw command is all the things that we want to change each time. Let's start with our setup command. In setup, we're going to set the size of the screen that we want to work with, and we're going to set the background color. Here I'm going to set it to white. Now let's take a look at the draw options. So here's our draw function, and what I'm going to do in the draw function is I'm going to set my color for lines. For this particular method I don't really need to set the fill color, but I will anyway. And then I'm going to draw a line that goes from the middle of the screen to where the mouse currently is. And I'm going to do that 60 times a second. You'll notice here that instead of taking my 300 and 300, dividing them by 2 and saying 150, 150, I've taken two values, width, which is always the width of the window, and height, which is always the height of the window, and divided those by 2. This allows me to just change the size here, and all the rest of my code will work as expected. So let's go and see what happens when we run this. Just waiting for the window to appear. Here we are. Let's just make that a bit bigger and we can see what happens with it. Now, as I move the mouse around, you can see that from the center of the screen it will follow and draw to the end of the mouse, where the mouse currently happens to be. And that's pretty cool, and we're happy with that. Very soon though you can see that the screen is going to get completely covered in red ink. So let's go back to our processing window, click stop, the window disappears, and think what we could do to change that. I'm going to move the background command down into the drawer, so each time it will create a new clean canvas to draw on. Let's run that and see what happens. Just get the window, wait for it to appear. Here we are. And now, as I move the mouse around, it redraws the background every time. And the line will follow where the cursor happens to be. If I move it quickly, you can see there's a little bit of a lag, but otherwise it's happily following my cursor around. There we go, you can see the mouse pointer now. So what's happening here, let's make that one a wee bit smaller so we can see the code again. Each time we go round draw, it's going to rewrite the background, reset these, and then change the line color as well. So we have a repeating bit of code just there that's going to go round again and again and again until we click stop.